So describe for me the very beginning of when you came to Congress in the mid 1980s. The place was still dominated by Democrats. What was your first impression, and what are some of your first memories of those early days?
Well, dominated by Democrats is a gross understatement, and they controlled everything. They had a huge margin. I think at the time I came in 1985, there was only 185 Republicans. Um, I mean, we were absolutely useless, and I recognize that. So most of my time was spent in working with the Republican conference. The only thing I ever wanted to be was to be whip. Of course, at that time, I thought I'd always be the minority whip for my entire career. So I was working the politics, the internal politics of the Republican conference. As a freshman, I became what is the only thing to be as a freshman, and that's the freshman representative on the Committee of Committees, which is the committee that makes the committee assignments. And I won that seat and immediately served with the senior members of the conference because the seniors were on that committee. So it was that's what I spent most of my first few months doing, and then after that, I continued to work within the politics of the Republican conference.
You did go right for the position that would give you the most influence over the direction of the party at the time, even as a freshman. That's definitely where you concentrated your energies. Why was it more interesting or important to you to start moving in the direction of leadership than it was sitting around writing legislation?
Well, I had served 6 years in the state legislature in the Texas House as a Republican. We were also in the minority there. It became quite evident to me that during that period of time that if I came to Congress, I needed to get involved in leadership, or there was no reason to be here, because if you were going to get anything done, even in the minority, you had to get it done through the leadership, and that's why I focused on that.
What were the Democrats like to you? I'm imagining what they might say you are like today. How would you describe them at that time?
Uh, they were very accommodating, very friendly. I had some very close friends as Democrats. As long as we stayed in the minority and didn't raise too much hell, they were. They worked with us. They worked with me. I had worked with the Democrats in the Texas legislature, so I had sort of a talent to working with the Democrats. And some of my closest friends were Democrats. Golfing buddies were Democrats. Had some close personal relationships. Those ended after we became in the majority.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Republican Revolution. I mean, clearly, some of you made a decision to start engaging in much more confrontational tactics, and you were clearly frustrated with the way that your leaders had been handling their status in the minority. How much tension was there within the Republican Party right then?
There's quite a bit of tension. We had the Conservative Opportunity Society, which was a rebellious group that didn't take minority as a lifelong career. I joined the Conservative Opportunity Society. There were people like Newt Gingrich, Bob Walker, Ben Weber. I was very excited that there was an aggressive group of Republicans that were going to work very hard to gain a majority, and I became part of that group. It was a group that didn't sit well with the senior members of the Republican Conference or the leadership. They thought we were just a ragtag group for a while, and then the group started growing, and the Republican leadership didn't like it. The Republican leadership was very comfortable in their minority status, and we firebrands, we Reagan babies, weren't comfortable at all.
When you succeeded, so famously, to become all overnight the majority after nearly half a decade, a century, were there tensions within your own ranks of revolutionaries? How did you all get along with each other in those early days as you tried to get used to having the power yourselves?
Well, first of all, we didn't get the majority overnight. We worked very hard to get that majority. I became chairman of the Republican Study Committee, and for my whole time, I think 5 or 6 years before 1994, the Republican Study Committee was working towards a majority, and the way we did it is the study committee would offer an alternative for every bill that the Democrats brought to the floor. That took a lot of work, a lot of effort. It was the Republican Study Committee that defeated Bush 41 when he wanted to raise taxes in the first vote in the House, and we were still in the minority. We were standing on principle, and that took a lot of work. So it was a pleasant surprise. I'm not sure a lot of us believed. We hoped, and things were looking good for us, but not a lot of us believed that we would gain the majority in 1994. But we did, and that was rather sudden. And so when we took it, we got along quite well at the beginning. The leadership worked very well together. We got a lot of things done. As you remember, the contract with America was to be done in 100 days. We did it in 93, and in 93 days. And after that, we had some issues, not the least of which was balancing the budget and welfare reform that were really important to get done quickly. And so we were really focused on that. It was after that that things started fraying and fracturing within the Republican leadership.
Well, talk about balancing the budget a little bit. You have often been quoted as saying that one of your regrets was that when the Republicans made the decision to shut down the government in the budget dispute with President Clinton, ultimately a deal was made and the government was reopened, and that was not what you would have done. Do you still feel that way, that the government should have stayed shut down?
That was a horrible Sunday evening. I was cooking steaks for 5 members Sunday evening, and we had the televisions on, and out walks Bob Dole and opens the Senate. It was Bob Dole, the majority leader of the Senate, that cut a deal with Clinton, unbeknownst to the House, without consulting with the House, and that was the beginning of the end of that effort. If we'd, as has been revealed since then, if Bob Dole had stayed tough, like the House was, for the next 1, 2, 3 days, we'd have won. That Clinton would have given in. But the Senate and the Republicans in the Senate didn't like our way of doing things in the House. We were aggressive. We wanted to get what we promised the American people done, and no excuses. And they never did like it.
Government shutdown wasn't particularly popular at that time. Did it matter?
No, it didn't matter. We knew there was an incredibly important fight to win, particularly with the Clinton administration, because it set the tone. It would have set the tone for the rest of the Clinton administration, and I think it would have been very popular after we had won. Unfortunately, nobody knows that because we didn't.
Now, you acknowledge that things did begin to fray within your own party. There were efforts made at one point, unsuccessful efforts, to push Newt Gingrich out of the Speaker's office before he ultimately decided on his own to leave. What happened there?
I think it was a frustration. The Speaker, the leadership was also frustrated. Newt is a brilliant mind. His mind is full of ideas, and he spits them out about every 10 minutes, a new idea. Well, if you're going to run a huge ship like the House of Representatives, you can't do that. You got to set your agenda, and you've got to execute your agenda. Unfortunately, Newt changed directions about every 15 to 30 minutes, and that was frustrating the leadership. It certainly was frustrating the members, and it manifested itself in the so-called coup, where the members gathered together, threatening to bring Newt down. Unbeknownst to those members, the leadership had already had 2 or 3 meetings with Newt about this very problem, and we were working it out with him to get a more accommodating management style so that we could actually accomplish things.
Do you think he was a good speaker?
He was a good general. He was he's a great leader in bringing us into the revolution. He was, as long as he was disciplined about what our agenda was, which frankly in the first 2 terms was already set. He has a lot to be proud of in what we were able to accomplish under his speakership. But he did only last 2 terms.
Yes, exactly.